Hi, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Joanna Nelson, and I am with the New Mexico Economic Development Department, and I'm on the Finance Development team. And we are really excited today that you're joining us. We've got a really good discussion for you today. So I want to thank you for your time, and especially I want to thank the presenters that have taken time out of their day to participate in this discussion. We have Chris Moya, Brad Lewis, Brian Griffith, Jerry Walker, and Rebecca Moore all here today. So everyone's calling in except Brian is here in the NMEDD office. So really excited that they could join us. A few things before we get started. We are recording this session. So if you do have to jump off, not a problem. We will send out the recording for you, and we will also put the recording on YouTube for you to access at a later time. And we'll also send out the presentation today. So no need to fret if you've got to step off. We will take questions. So if you have questions that come up, feel free to type them into the questions box on the right hand of your screen, and we'll take those at the end. So if something comes up while someone is speaking, feel free to type those and we'll get to them at the end. So I did want to give a little bit of information about the Economic Development Department as well before we get started. This webinar is a part of a series that we do through NMEDD. We do these webinars once a month, and we highlight finance development topics. So as you can see, these are the different divisions that are housed in economic development right now at the state level. So if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to reach out. On the finance development team, we obviously are concerned with finance development. So that means how do communities pay for economic development and infrastructure projects, and also how do businesses access funding. So the issue of financing the hemp industry is obviously really pertinent to us in the work that we do. This is a blooming industry that the governor and our cabinet secretary have identified as a key target industry to support. We want to make sure that any issues, any questions, whether from the lender's standpoint or from the business's purview, are addressed. And we're doing our best to support and identify any issues in that field. So again, really excited about the topic. These are our programs that we manage on the Finance Development team. I'm just going to read through these: the Local Economic Development Act, Fund It, New Markets Tax Credits, New Mexico Collateral Assistance Program, Rural Efficient Business Program, and Opportunity Zones. Again, if you have any questions on these, we can follow up at a later time. Within the Economic Development Department, we have a number of regional representatives that are located throughout the state. You can see those in that gray map. And these are really we always call them the boots on the ground. These are the folks that are located in these identified regions, and they are representing our department. And they are a wealth of resources, not only regionally, but statewide and federally. They're able to connect those communities and those businesses directly to our department, answer any questions about our programs, and really work with the communities hand in hand on figuring out how to close deals and get projects done. Also, New Mexico Main Street is in our department. As hopefully you're already aware of, this is a great organization that is able to really get involved with project development in smaller rural areas. So I want to introduce Chris Moya, who is with the New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department. And within that, the Finance Institution Division, and he's the division director, and he's joined today by with Rebecca Moore, and she's the division bank industry manager. So they have a wealth of knowledge and experience about this topic. So we're really excited to hear from them, and they're going to be talking about, just kind of in a discussion format, issues and regulations within banking the hemp industry. So Chris and Rebecca, take it away.
And thank you for that introduction, and hello and welcome everyone who's listening online or following along. My name is Christopher Moya. I'm the director of the Financial Institutions Division here under the Regulation and Licensing Department of the state of New Mexico, and kind of give you a brief overview of what the Financial Institutions Division is and what we do. We are the primary regulator for about 15 different financial industries that operate here in the state of New Mexico. Two of our biggest industries that we oversee are our state chartered community banks and our state chartered credit unions here in the state. So as you guys know, this is the new industry that's been opened up to the state of New Mexico as far as in regards to the hemp industry. And just like everyone else, we've spent some time trying to educate ourselves on it, learning about it, and wanting to give guidance to our financial institutions divisions, or financial institutions out there that service this industry or may be servicing this industry in the future. Back in September, as the director of the Financial Institutions Division, I released some guidance to our financial institutions in regards to servicing hemp-related businesses or businesses that also serve hemp-related products. And so as I speak today, I speak really from the purview of the regulator and what we see or what we want to see in our financial institutions that decide to partake in servicing this industry. I do state that I'm excited about the industry. It's something new that our state has the ability to generate new types of businesses and new types of revenues. So anything we can do as the if you quote unquote the banking regulator, help our institutions kind of succeed in this area, we're going to do that. So from our take as a regulator, hemp and hemp-related businesses, I think there's this, for people that don't know, they think hemp and they think marijuana. We see them and we understand that they're two different industries. The hemp-related businesses and hemp-related product services, we know that there is a distinction between a marijuana-related business, which would be the medical marijuana related businesses, and the hemp-related businesses. So we draw that distinction, and we, as regulators, we want to make sure that our institutions understand that as well. So in the guidance that we put out in September of 2019, really was outlining or looking at developing some guidance for those institutions that deal in that area. And some of the guidance that we put out for our institutions when they decide to, put together a program where they're either going to offering financial services, whether it be in the deposit side of things or if it's in the financing side of things, that they always consult, obviously, with their legal counsel for the financial institutions to make sure to make sure that their program is in line with what's needed for the guidance. Also, that they exercise due diligence in ensuring that the financial institution would only be providing services to individuals and companies that operate within the confines of state and federal law to produce, manufacture, transport, and sell legal hemp and hemp-related products, and also to keep apprised of ongoing legal developments at the state and federal level, including new rules, licensing, and registration requirements that may be promulgated by the agencies involved. Also, the guidance that we put out is that any programs that a financial institution puts in place to service hemp-related businesses, that it does have a board-driven approach, and that the risk analysis of any program that is offered is developed by the board and overseen by the board of directors of the business. Also, one of the key elements that we put out is we see hemp and hemp businesses and hemp-related product businesses as being legal businesses. And so in that instance, In that instance, we don't require SARs being filed. What a SARs is a suspicious activity report. We do recommend, though, that if they suspect the suspicious activity, they do still file a SAR, but it's not a requirement, where it is a requirement on the marijuana business side, on the medical side of things. So we put that guidance out to our financial institutions to offer some reg relief, if you will, in that area. Some of the best practices that we told our institutions that they should look into or address is identifying, whenever they're setting up these accounts, they're doing their proper due diligence and opening an account, and identifying, is this only a hemp-related business, or is there some crossover? As the director of FID, I don't know how that industry will necessarily operate, if there will be some crossover, if you'll have some companies or entities that operate silos, where they'll have a hemp silo and maybe a marijuana-related business type silo. But we do ask our financial institutions to do their due diligence when setting up those accounts and identifying if there's risk involved there, or if it is strictly a hemp-related business, and setting that into their program. Also, we ask that our institutions be aware of any state laws and regulations as it pertains to the hemp industry as these things change. And I know there's going to be a couple, there's the other panelists are going to talk a little bit about the USDA new guidance that just came out. We also have a panel that's going to talk about the new Safe Banking Act today, so I won't go into that because I don't want to steal their thunder. But we ask our institutions to maintain awareness of those changes as they come into play. And the most important thing, we also ask them to be aware of any new licensing, or making sure that whoever they're doing business with in that world is properly licensed, whether it be through the state or the federal government, if licensing changes at that point. But overall, the Financial Institutions Division, we encourage institutions to take a risk-based approach in assessing individual customer relationships, rather than declining to provide banking services to entire categories of customers without regard to the risk presented by an individual customer or the financial institution's ability to manage risk. And I can't speak for the FDIC or the NCUA on that, but I know their guidance is reflective of that as well. So from a regulator's perspective, we do want to do everything that we can to ensure that our institutions are safe and sound, but at the same time, we encourage our financial institutions that are under our purview that if they are looking to put this program in place, or if they've already put that program in place, that they can contact us to look at their program, to review their program, to make sure that it's in line with what we would look at as regulators. We're often titled as the folks that carry the big stick and the big bad regulators, but at the end of the day, we want our institutions to prosper, and we want them to have the ability to provide capital to industries such as a new booming industry as the hemp industry, because I do believe deep down it's going to create some economic development for our rural areas, and a new revenue stream for a lot of our state. I don't know if Rebecca has anything to add on top of that. She's really experienced in the operational side, and somebody may have some questions down the line, but I'm sure she'd be happy to answer, or if she wants to provide anything else with that.
No, I'm sorry. No, I think you covered it pretty well there, Chris, but I am available for questions as they come up.
Thank you. And I'll go ahead and turn my presentation over to Joanna, but I'm here for questions. If anybody has any questions as they pop up, or at the end, we'll be happy to answer those.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris and Rebecca. That was great. Brad Lewis, I think you are logged on. I think you can hear us, but you'll have to call in on a different number. So I sent you an email. But in the meantime, we're going to skip to Brian's presentation, and excuse us, sorry about this. And Brian Griffith is the Vice President of Commercial Lending Services from Sandia Area Federal Credit Union, and we're really excited to have him today here to represent kind of from the lending side and the financing side, the lender, the credit union side of your experience and kind of what you all look for in these projects. So I'm going to turn it over to him. and you should be able just to start that.
Thank you. First, I'd like to provide a little bit of background information about Sandia area. We were founded in 1956. We currently have about $730 million in assets. We have 7 locations serving Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And we are a community chartered credit union, meaning anybody that lives, works, worships, or attends school in Albuquerque, Rio Rancho, and some of the surrounding communities can join the Sandia area. Additionally, anybody that subscribes to the ethics of permaculture is eligible to join. Permaculture is a sustainable design system stressing the harmonious interrelationship of humans, plants, animals, and the earth. Its core ethics are care of the earth, care of the people, and recycling the surplus. Okay, in order to open a business account, hemp business account with Sandia area, the first thing we're going to ask to see is your hemp license. After that, we'll want to see the ownership structure of the business, 2 forms of identification for each signer, and the business entity documents, which include the articles of organization, the federal tax ID number, and the certificate of good standing with the Secretary of State. Additionally, we will ask you some questions, kind of the point that Chris just made, to find out if your business derives any revenue from marijuana-related activities. If it does, unfortunately, we won't be able to open the account. Right now, we're just focusing on the hemp business side of things at the moment. As for getting a loan, Sandia area is a traditional lender, meaning we focus on the 5 C's of credit for every loan that we make. The 5 C's being character, capacity, capital, conditions, and collateral. So we'll ask you for business and personal tax returns, some financial statements, an application, and information about the proposed collateral. Once we've gathered all that information and determined the request meets our policy guidelines, we can get into the details about rates and terms for your request. Finally, I've provided some contact information if you'd like to speak with somebody directly about your specific business. If you have questions about opening an account with Sandia area, please contact Qatar El Alawi, our Commercial Services Officer. Any loan-specific questions can be directed to Gabriel Fernandez, our Commercial Lending Manager. And questions about either topic or just general questions can be directed to myself. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. We are going to move on to Jerry Walker's discussion. And Jerry is the President and CEO of the Independent Community Bankers Association of New Mexico and has a long history of working in New Mexico and supporting commerce and lenders and economic development. And we're really thrilled that he's here and with us today. So, Jerry, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Joanna. Good morning, everyone. My remarks will be, I think, fairly brief. The Independent Community Bankers Association is an association of community banks that are owned and headquartered in New Mexico. We currently have 34 charters in the state that are home-owned and operated. I think we're holding somewhere in the neighborhood of, and Chris can correct me or Rebecca can correct me, but somewhere in the neighborhood of about $16, $17 billion in assets, deposits here in the state of New Mexico. This entire discussion is very interesting to our banks, mainly because community banks in New Mexico are less than 60% loan to deposit ratio, meaning that only about less than 60% of our funds that are available for lending are actually lent. So our banks are looking for loans, quality loans. They have to be loans that obviously can be paid back and that do comply with federal and state law. And proper underwriting, as Chris has pointed out, the risk side of banking. But we're looking, our members are looking for loans in all quadrants of the state. And so the hemp question is one that we have supported development of this industry since day one. My role here this morning is to talk about just a couple of things. Number one, the Safe Banking Act. And the Safe Banking Act, for those of you who are not aware of it, we have a conflict between federal and state law. Obviously, here in New Mexico, medical marijuana, medical cannabis is a legal business in this state. However, it is still an illegal business at the federal level. So that puts our banks in a real quandary, because even if you are a state chartered bank, you still have to be held accountable to the federal regs that are put forth by the FDIC and other federal agencies that control the type of banking and lending that's done here in the state of New Mexico by our banks. And so it puts us in a catch-22. So the Safe Banking Act recognizes that 11 states have approved adult use of recreational cannabis, and 33 states have approved the medical use of cannabis. And so the House bill that has passed the House of Representatives here in the last couple of weeks passed, about a month ago, I guess now, passed the House of Representatives 321 to 103. That's a very strong bipartisan vote coming out of a very divided Congress, and we were very, very happy to see that vote. Now, over on the Senate side, Senator Jeff Merkley and 33 co-sponsors have introduced Senate Bill 1200, and that is a companion bill to the House bill. And the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, Senator Mike Crapo from Idaho, has indicated that he intends to consider some form of safe harbor legislation similar to the House bill here very quickly. Now, I hate to say this. Well, I don't hate to say it. I just hate to recognize the fact that all of this impeachment stuff that's going on is getting in the way of actually getting some very badly needed legislation passed, so that our banks have some clear guidance and have a safe harbor by which they can start providing banking services to the medical cannabis industry here in the state. And it spills over also into the hemp issue as well, even though hemp has been legalized at the federal level, and we certainly have legalized it here at the state level. It does create a problem for hemp as well. So my request of those on this call today, and my suggestion to those of you who would like to see the hemp industry move forward on a quicker basis, and also for those who would be interested in seeing the medical cannabis, and eventually, when our legislature passes, and I think they will at some point, the recreational cannabis statutes, we need your help, we being the banking industry. We need your help in asking our senators, Udall and Heinrich, to, number one, get behind passage of Senate Bill 1200 in the United States Senate. We would also request that our governor become involved in this and actually write a letter of support for Senate Bill 1200 and get that to our legislators, our senators in Washington, and get it to the leadership of the United States Senate, both sides of the aisle, and express that support for trying to take this, get this albatross that's hanging on the necks of our banks off, and so that our banks can actually start providing lending services, banking services to this industry. I was very, very encouraged to see just this morning that an interim final rule has been published in the Federal Register by the USDA regarding the hemp program. We've been waiting on this. The rule that was published this morning includes provisions to improve hemp production plans that have been developed by states and by Indian tribes. And our state, of course, our Department of Agriculture in Las Cruces, they have done a tremendous, terrific job in getting our state ready to play in this new marketplace when the feds were ready. If you would like to see a copy of that final rule that was published this morning, you can go to the USDA.gov, go to their public affairs tab, PA at USDA.gov, and you can go from there and go down and read the press release. You can also go to the Federal Register and read. I think it's 48 pages. That final rule is 48 pages. It sets up not only the uh, uh, providing for approving state and tribal plans for hemp production plants. It sets up sampling and testing procedures, and it's going to. This is what we've been waiting for, and so I'm very, very encouraged by that. You can see information. Not only does this final rule is it not important in terms of the legalities of having a hemp production plan in each state, it also makes available to hemp farmers a number of USDA programs for insurance coverage and so forth. So this is a big step, and it's one that we've been waiting to see. You can visit farmers.gov/hemp, farmers.gov/hemp, and take a look at that's on the USDA's website, and take a look at that. Joanna, with that, I think I would just stop at that point and be glad to try to respond to any questions. If Brad Lewis is on the line, I'm sure Brad's aware of this final rule, and I'm sure that he will have much more in-depth and better comments about the rule than I do at this point. But I thank you all very, very much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of community banks in New Mexico, and anything we can do to help on this issue, we certainly want to. One final comment, just so you understand, the community banking industry, we're not out here advocating for the legalization of recreational cannabis. What we are advocating for is, if it's going to occur in New Mexico, we do not want our banks being caught between a conflict of federal and state law. And so that's our interest, and that and the fact that we are looking for ways to help with economic development in the state of New Mexico, and banks do that by lending. And if we can't lend, then that kind of puts a stick in the spoke of the wheel of economic development. And so we're encouraged. We're very excited about this. And with that, I truly will stop now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerry. And just in closing, I know the Independent Community Bankers Association is such a great, what's my phone? Thought it was talking to it. But you guys do such great work. Do you mind sharing just a little bit of information about your org and how people can connect with you guys?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yes. Our website is icbanm.org, and you're certainly welcome to contact us. I believe the slide that Joanna put up on the webinar has our office phone number and my personal cell number. You're welcome to call or text. Basically, you can go to our website and you can see our member directory, and you can see the banks that are members of the independent community bankers, and not to get too deep in the weeds, but ours are those home-owned banks. They're not the big banks. They're not the large regional or large national banks that we see up and down the street. Ours are truly the ones who are in the communities and who are involved in communities, not only in lending to small businesses and so forth, but also they're the ones that you run into in Safeway or Furr's or Albertsons or wherever you might be going to eat or shop. And they're the guys and gals, I'm sorry, that you go to church with, you see at PTA meetings. They're invested in the community. But yes, our website is icbanm.org, and we would be delighted to talk to anyone at any time. Does that help, Joanna?
Yes, that does help. And I know that you all recently had a panel about this same topic. So hopefully people could follow up with you if they want to get more information about what arose from that discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a tremendous panel. We had Chris Moya and Rebecca Moore on that panel. We had the FDIC. We had, I believe, the New Mexico Department of Agriculture. Brad Lewis did a terrific job. We had a gentleman who does compliance, monitoring and so forth, and consulting for banks. And then we had advocates of the hemp industry itself, Jerry Ortiz. We had, oh my goodness, just a variety of folks. I'm trying to remember now everyone who was there. But we did have about a 3-hour discussion at the Marriott in Albuquerque, and probably one of the best panels that I have seen in many, many years on any subject. There is a lot of interest, there's a lot of excitement, but there's still a lot of questions as well, and that's what that panel was all about. So, but I would really refer anyone to Brad Lewis if they're producers looking to get into farming and growing hemp. The New Mexico Department of Agriculture has just done a tremendous job in setting up I think, a very sound program.
Thanks for that, Jerry. And I hope one of the takeaways today is that there are plenty of people and resources, agencies, lending institutions that are out there to help promote this industry. So if that's the one takeaway, I hope that's it. I do see that Brad is on do you want to try your microphone, Brad, and see if we can hear you?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So exciting. I'm really happy about that. So I'm going to go back in the slides. And are you looking at a computer right now?
I am.
Okay, so you just tell me when you want me to switch the slides, and we'll get going on your presentation if you're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
Let's see.
Take it away.
Are we at the, okay, no switch. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. Like Jerry said, there has been a number of new developments in the regulatory end of it within the last 24 hours. And so I scrambled yesterday to rebuild a slideshow. So I just threw a bunch of stuff in there, hoping I may be able to hit something of value and interest to everybody that is on the line right now. The other thing, in addition to the release of USDA's rules, was that we also got the October report regarding the hemp industry. And so every month I subscribe to and receive information regarding the financial inputs of the hemp world and so forth and what's going on. And I've been waiting for the October report because I know from a number of my friends that are in the hemp business that things have significantly changed in the world in sales of hemp within the last 25 days. So I tried to include some of those things in this to try to give those of you that have a financial interest in this business with respect to loans and so forth, that you can look and see what is going on in the industry within the last 20 or 25 days. So with this, I'll try to move through this relatively quick. Some things I'll probably just slip by because there's maybe of little value to the group or not on that. So let me see if you can switch the slide, please.
Hey, Brad, you're going to have to speak. We lost you, so you're going to have to speak directly into the phone or...
Yeah, I'm on the
there?
computer.
Okay.
The phone system just is not working for whatever reason, Joanne.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, and so go ahead and switch the slide for me.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the significant results. I took. Go ahead and switch to the next one. Basically, states are operating under the 2014 Farm Bill still, although the 2018 Farm Bill was signed with respect to hemp in December of last year, and the rules were released yesterday, as Jerry was pointed out. The confusion the states are having now, and there's a lot of chatter between us involved in the regulatory aspects of hemp, is regarding where we stand. Are we still operating under the 2014 or are we operating under 2018? USDA has said that as of since the rules are promulgated, they are the law right now. The only issue is that states cannot operate under those 2018 laws until their state plan that Jerry referenced has been accepted by USDA. Now, the state plan is the plan for the regulatory aspect of hemp in the state, and that's what moves the state from a research point of view, or research growing aspect, which New Mexico is right now, and so are the other 33 states, to more of a commercial growing aspect of it. So there's still a lot of confusion in the regulatory industry with USDA, and so it's going to take some time to sort that out. USDA probably does not have answers to a lot of states' questions. So go ahead, Joanna, please. States liberally interpreted the research requirements under the 2014, and I think the intent of USDA under the 2014 bill was that they would see universities and departments of agriculture doing small plots research over a number of years to gain data and so forth. Well, what happened was states looked at that, and they looked at the marketing portion of it, and what they did is they included all growers in the state as part of a large research plan. And then they went ahead and went forth with commercial production in those states on there. So Colorado, Montana were leading the states at that time, and they still are with production. I think there was about 80,000 acres in the U.S. that in 2018 last statistics of hemp grown. Go ahead. 2014 had few specifics in it, and some of those were few regulations regarding hemp manufactured products, no clear message regarding financial institutions, and Jerry went over that. Pesticide usages, which is very important in the industry, was not addressed in any of this stuff. And they did help determine and develop the markets for CBD. So the 2014 in the states went ahead, planted, and they began to see the opportunities available for this industry. In the later adopter states, New Mexico is a later adopted state, only coming into it this year. We learned quite a bit from the early adopters that have been in the hemp business for 3 to 4 years. So many of the mistakes that early states made regarding hemp regulations, New Mexico was able to get around those. Go ahead, Joanna, please. So under the 2014 Farm Bill language, legalized in New Mexico, rules promulgated in 2018 in New Mexico. And basically the rules ensure crop plants meet the federal and state definition of hemp. And that's very important for the banking industry to make sure that the state is able to discern between cannabis grows that are marijuana, that are illegally federally, and those that are legally federally as hemp. And so we went into our regulations with that point in mind, that the financial institutions, once they see the documentation and so forth from the Department of Agriculture, that they can be rest assured that those are legal hemp operations and they're not illegal marijuana operations in the state. The 2019 Hemp Manufacturing Act, which Jerry was a big part of during the last legislation, was promulgated with New Mexico with New Mexico Environment Department promulgating rules this week in hearings. And what this did is this established the regulations for the processing of hemp in the state and for the manufacturing of hemp products, which is very important if we are going to maintain a hemp industry in there. Go ahead, Joanna. So in the 2019 growing season, so we have only been in the hemp business less than a year. Approximately 300 outdoor licenses representing 7,500 acres in the state. And these licenses represent those that are growing just a few plants to one individual that's growing over 2,400 acres of hemp in the state. We have approximately 100 indoor licenses representing over 100 acres of greenhouse space in the state. We're growing hemp in all but 2 New Mexico counties. So I think the point of that is that New Mexico has a significant interest in producing hemp and in the hemp industry, much more so than any of us anticipated when we started getting into this. We're about finished with our harvest for field seasons in the state. We had 286 fields that were inspected, and we had 33 crop destruct orders issued. So that means of those fields that we looked at, 33 were found not to meet the definition of hemp. So they were probably, poor grade marijuana or whatever. Now, we also understand that there are a number of issues in the state. I may cover this later or skip over it, but I'll hit it now. Is that, well, let me go ahead. Go ahead and switch, Joanna. I'll address it later. Thank you. Hemp production in the state, we see it from commercial scale, large scale, many acres, etc., to cottage scale. A lot of the cottage scales up in northeastern part of the state, and these half-acre, quarter-acre, 1-acre blocks where they will start producing a very high-quality hemp product. Some of the benefits we've seen in the state, economic benefits, we've seen fallow farmland put back into production, especially up in northern New Mexico. A lot of the land that has been irrigated by acequias has been put back into production with acequia, watered, irrigated by the acequias. I was at one meeting, and one of the acequia managers said that right now there probably more land in production than there is water available in the acequias, which has not happened in a long time. So we see that as a positive. Vacant greenhouses that have been in the state for 8 to 10 years, released and repurposed for the hemp industry. So we've seen a lot of jobs associated with that greenhouse production be created in a relatively short period of time. We have one greenhouse in southern New Mexico that is quite large. One day there's 5 cars in it. The next day there's 150 cars in the parking lot for employees on there. So we look at that as a positive. Vacant warehouses sold and leased. So we have a lot of vacant properties that are now servicing the hemp industry with respect to storing and curing hemp into it. Increase in labor demand at all levels. So we've seen a lot of skilled labor go into the hemp market and unskilled labor in the hemp market. And the jobs are relatively good. They pay much more than minimum wage in the hemp business for many of these jobs that we see on there. And we also see the development of the infrastructure for it. So we've seen extraction plants, manufacturing plants, clonal producers, seed producers, etc., that have established in New Mexico. Go ahead with the next slide. So lessons learned on this that we've seen from the first year. Hemp is expensive to grow. This year, the average price to get into the game was about $4,000 to $8,000 a planted acre. The question comes into mind, if you know agricultural businesses, is where did the money come to support all of this industry? As Jerry pointed out, financial institutions were unable to loan on it due to lack of clarification in the laws and a lack of understanding by the industry regarding the risks. And so the money that came in to finance this came from out of state, and it came from venture capitalists. So many of the acres planted in the state have outside partnerships associated with those productions, and the same with a number of the supporting infrastructures, such as the extractors and manufacturers and so forth on it. And so that loans came at a pretty high cost. I mean, there's a high percentage of the profits that are going to leave the state for that financing. But that's the only way that New Mexico could have got it. And there are a number of New Mexicans that dump their own personal wealth into this business. But by and large, there are a lot of partnerships made with out-of-state people with money on that. High risk. We saw that in our plantings, much of the seed and much of the clones were not representative as being hemp. So they are poor quality products that the processors will not accept. We don't know the percentage yet. We'll have those figures at a later date. We have poor seed that never came up in these fields, and our growers paid significant money for those, up to $1 to $4 a seed. And there's a number of lawsuits in the country that have resulted this last year from misrepresentation of seed, of hemp seed and hemp clones in the country. Growers learn that this is a difficult crop to grow for compliance. Everybody thinks it's a weed and you just throw it in the ground. That is not true. This thing in the breeding and so forth is very difficult to raise. We've seen that our vegetable producers are very good at raising hemp because they're very used to growing chili and some of the other products that require a lot of daily attention to them. There's a lack of crop protective chemicals. EPA has not licensed agricultural chemicals for the protection of hemp in the United States. We are working through that with EPA as well as other states to try to ensure that we have crop protection chemicals available. The biggest issue we had in the state that we had a number of growers walk away from their fields because they just could not keep the weeds out. The weeds just outcompeted the hemp and they were left with nothing in the field. There are difficulties related to harvest. Many of our growers did not have the experience or did not hire people with experience to help them on how to harvest it. And so forth. They, did not understand the hand harvest requirements for this crop this year, nor did they understand the impact that machine harvest has on the crop when you're harvesting it by machine. So it's a very complex crop for growers to understand. Go ahead, Joanne. If we look at the markets for New Mexico hemp, it is primarily for CBD extraction. And that's the lotions, the tinctures. Those are those small 1, 2 ml vials that you see in stores with CBD oil in it. That's a big market. Food products in state. Somebody brought me a bottle of CBD bottled water that's being produced in New Mexico. New Mexico is one of the states that has, for the time being, allowed for the introduction of CBD into food products on there. FDA is still addressing that issue, but we all felt that the CBD markets out there were so inundated in food products already that we decided to include it in last year's legislation as being legal in New Mexico. So we're seeing those manufactured products being shown on grocery stores and so forth. And then pet products is another big outlet for it. FDA is still addressing CBD allowances in pet products also. Smokables is another one that nobody expected except those that are very familiar with the business. So we see a lot of our hemp is being produced and going to New York and so forth for use in cigarettes, cigars, and for use in vapes at this point in time. That is a specialty product and that is a high value product in prices and so forth. We also see some seed, hemp seed for meal, hemp parts, etc. We've just had some markets for greens for the use of hemp leaves in salads. It's, do a 10% or 15% hemp leaves in salad. And if you get the right cultivar and the right profile of terpenes, those are the aromatics in hemp, it actually adds quite a bit to the salad. We have few markets for the fiber-based products right now in New Mexico. Joanna, please. Did I lose you all?
No, you didn't. There's a bit of a delay sometimes when I advance the slide.
Didn't know if I was talking to myself, which I do a lot.
No, you're doing great. We're with you.
Okay, so many commercial-sized growing operations are financed throughout a state. I talked about that. The issue with that is a portion of those profits leave the state, and nobody likes to see that in New Mexico. The other thing is no chicken shall fall from the sky to your mouth. And this is an old saying from Europe. Because growers that did not understand the business and employ consultants may have a difficult time selling their crop. Many of our growers at the beginning of us saw things on the web touting the millions of dollars that could be made in an acre of hemp and so forth on this. And they went into that approach there thinking that they planted the crop. Somebody would come knock on their door and offer them, $100,000 an acre to buy the crop. That is not the case. And so we see a number of growers that did not understand the business, did not line up the extractors and so forth in the business, having a difficult time selling their product right now at a profit. We do have, as one of my friends in the business, one of my broker friends in the business says, we have a lot of sharks that are circulating around the state that are buying hemp on 10 cents on the dollar for what it's worth on there right now from these people on there. So again, a very complex crop to grow, a very complex crop to market, what we said. We have inadequate in-state extraction facilities, which necessitated the transportation of biomass to Colorado for extraction. There is a huge backlog in the country right now in the extraction of hemp. And so this backlog has created a depression in the market price for hemp in New Mexico and all other states. We do see that we have 11 licensed extractors in the state. And I was on the phone with Environment Department yesterday. They probably have a stack of about 20 more that are coming online. So that is what's going to be needed to ensure that we have a sustainable business in this state, is those extractors. As we see the price of hemp being commercialized, which is happening, the ability to transport this to make money becomes less appealing. Transportation becomes very expensive. So we will have to have those extractors in place in order to reap the rewards of the CBD and the other products that are coming out of it. We're seeing that larger growers are vertically integrated by adding their own extraction facilities. So there is a manufacturer in Deming that makes a small extraction equipment for just this purpose. So we see a number of growers that are buying into those extraction facilities and doing their own extraction on there. Lack of extraction in the country resulted in initial oversupply of hemp. So what our best expectation from a financial point of view is we see a depressed market price from the field at this point in time. We think that that will grow, or that price will increase as this oversupply into the extractors gets used up and the demand continues to increase. And so our best guess is that within the next 5 months, 6 months, we'll start seeing prices for raw hemp continue to increase in the country. Go again, please. Here's some examples of biomass. So hemp biomass has dropped 50% in 4 months. And I put up an example for those of you that are trying to begin to understand this business. So biomass is sold on a price. And so right now the price is around $2 a point per pound. So in the business, it's a PPP. So that's percent of biomass, $2 a percent of biomass per pound. So biomass coming in is 10% CBD. 1,000 pounds biomass per acre is equal to about $20,000 an acre. If you can hit that 1,000-pound biomass and that 10% figure for those type of things. So that's kind of an example of how this product is sold in the biomass market. Low quality biomass, less than 10% CBD is very difficult to sell right now. And the reason for that low quality CBD biomass is, again, primarily based on genetics. People bought poor genetics that had maybe 3 or 4% CBD in it on that. Go ahead, Joanne. Thank you. So the sustainability of hemp production in Mexico, and this is my best guess and a number of us that are associated with the industry and so forth. First of all, New Mexico is an excellent climate for growing hemp. We have low humidity, which reduces the pathogen growth that is a significant problem in other states where it rains all the time. That means that the quality of our product is going to be on the upper end in the country. Low rainfall allows for field drying. A number of states cannot field dry their hemp. It has to be dried with mechanical, which is an added expense on it. So we believe that is a plus for New Mexico. We have predictable freezes in the state. Freezes are tough on hemp during the flowering stage on it. Most, in general, ours are predictable in the state. We have low greenhouse operations. So we're going to see our greenhouse operations are going to grow and increase in the state and going after that high value smokable market that we're seeing in it. And that'll allow for a year-end production. We don't have the heating costs that you have in North Dakota or Colorado or some of the other states, Montana, that are in there. So we look at that as a value added as our plus to our hemp industry. And as hemp genetics stabilize, New Mexico yields will be predictable here. Most of our fields are irrigated from subsurface or surface waters that are predictable. We don't rely on rainfall for our hemp crop. That's another advantage we feel for New Mexico in this crop. Some of the things I've already covered, as prices drop, we will require expansion of hemp facilities near our production areas in there. And we're seeing that happen now. USDA needs to determine the status of hemp and extracts related to food and feed. So FDA is working on that. At some point in the near future, they're going to classify CBD and see what there's going to be out. When they do that, you're going to see a significant increase in CBD products across the country, in food products, et cetera, on those. So the markets are waiting for that to happen. Markets for hemp-based products, we need those to continue to grow at an increasing rate with 50 states involved in this game, including Alaska. And Alaska can grow hemp outdoors. We're going to have to see those markets increase in order for it become a viable crop in New Mexico on it. Financial institutions must become educated. At this point in time, it is very difficult for a financial institution to look at a loan package in this industry. I've had the opportunity to look and review of those, and as much as I know of this industry, I would be hard pressed to determine a risk for some of these packages that you all are going to receive for loans in the state. The state needs to expand beyond the extract market. We're working with economic development and the industry and how we can do it. Had a meeting with the Jemez Pueblo governor and lieutenant governors with the Environment Department earlier this week, and that was where their focus is. They want the ability to include hemp in forest products and other things other than CBD. Everybody knows that CBD market is going to be limited. States have to expand in the other products. New Mexico has the opportunity to look at bioplastics as a way. So we're trying to investigate those avenues also as looking at as expanding the industry on it, and regionalized research with our academic institutions is extremely important in order to maximize whatever extracts. Please, Joanna. 2018 Farm Bill, as Jerry said, released rules for hemp production on Tuesday afternoon. They came in the form of, I don't know, 100 and some odd pages that states are still looking for it. The most important thing on it is they're going to level the regulatory playing field for states. 33 states are growing hemp right now under 33 different regulations and rules. Some states do not test hemp for compliance. Some states use 1% THC for compliance rather than 0.3% THC. So you can see this has made it very difficult for some states to compete with others, and it's made it almost impossible to transport this product across state lines when states, not all states, are playing the same game. So that's what states are hoping for, is these rules will level the playing field for everything on there. It will move states out of research to commercial production, but by all reasonable accounts, all states are in the commercial business right now. This just legitimizes that commercial production on there. All states have to submit a regulatory plan. I have a directive from my boss. He would like to see a draft of our regulatory plan in the next 2 weeks for us to submit on there for his review and so forth on there. Under the plans that I've reviewed and so forth, and I've gone through most of the USDA's rules and regulations, we're going to see a greater number of non-compliant fields grown in New Mexico next year under their rules. New Mexico right now tests 20 days before harvest. They're going to require 15 days before harvest. New Mexico has built in a value to account for differences in instrumentation and laboratory analysis. It's a relatively liberal variance on the 0.3. USDA is going to tighten that up, and so a lot of fields that were compliant this year are not going to meet compliance next year under those. We do see insurance and some of the other federal programs that hemp growers are going to be allowed to participate in that they were not allowed to participate in earlier on there. The insurance programs will not address excessive THC in fields. So they will address those normal things like crop failure due to hail, drought, et cetera on those. I doubt there will be a commodity floor price for hemp as we see in cotton and corn and other commodities on there. In general, when I've looked over the rules, when I visited with Secretary Whitty, I think we're going to have only minor changes to our laws regarding our hemp regulations. Secretary Whitty did a lot of great guessing earlier in the game when we set up our rules. So we're not too far off the mark from the federal regulations. Go ahead, Joanna. 2020, I'm predicting it's going to be an adjustment year. And the biggest adjustment is that we're going to see the monetization of hemp in this country. So it is going to move from that high value, high specialty to more of a commodity crop. And the prices received for hemp biomass are going to represent that commoditization of those there. Growers are going to be a lot smarter this year. They're going to understand the markets. They're going to understand the issues with growing hemp, et cetera, a lot better. So I suspect we're going to have a lot fewer fields are going to fail due to agronomic reasons, including weeds, et cetera, on that. We're also going to see smarter industry related to the selling of hemp in the state. We're also going to see a lot more extractors in the state, and the more extractors we have, we'll also see competition for that biomass produced in the state, which will help maintain those prices of biomass in the state. The markets are going to move to a very high quality CBD by biomass. So if you can't hit those figures that industry is going to set for biomass, you're going to have a very difficult time moving your biomass to an extractor. It costs a lot of money to extract CBD and the other cannabinoids from CBD from extractors. And so if it's a low CBD biomass, they won't even touch it because of the cost involved in extracting it out of it. We'll also see a continued greenhouse operations. Go ahead, please. In summary, we saw growers make significant profits. Some people have made very good profits. I ran into a friend of mine at a meeting that I presented in central New Mexico and sat next to her. And I said, look, give me a call when you make your first million. And she nudged me and says, I already made my first $1.5 million off of it. So we do see people making money off of it. Success is dependent on national, international entities in this. So we're all waiting on the markets and where these markets are going to be nationally and internationally with respect to extracts of hemp. And New Mexico's unique climate research capabilities, water quality, and especially support from the state government. The LEDA funds from economic development have played a very important role in the establishment of the infrastructure in this business, and I suspect they will continue to do so in the state on those type of things. So the industry is very thankful for those participants in state government on those things. Go ahead to the next one.
I think that's it.
Okay, good. I'm it. I'll turn it back over to you, Joanna.
Okay, thank you so much, Brad. That was really great perspective and insight. I am going to go pretty quickly through some slides that I put together representing some programs that NMEDD has that can definitely help finance hemp industry businesses. So I want to go through these kind of quickly. Just know that you can reach out to us and ask questions and follow up, because we're already getting some great questions and want to have some time to get to those and have you done by 11:30. So one of the programs that is relatively new that we have is called the New Mexico Collateral Assistance Program. And basically what this does is it covers shortfalls in collateral that a business has when trying to secure a commercial loan. So we hear this quite a bit, obviously, in ag-related businesses, hemp included, that collateral can be an issue when lenders are looking at a project and figuring out, does it pencil out, is it feasible? So this might be a good fit. How this works is we are able to purchase an amount of money. We'll go up to $250,000 or up to 50% of the principal in a CD that covers that collateral gap. So let's use the example that a hemp business is trying to take a loan out on a $100,000 piece of equipment. The bank is only willing to recognize, let's say, 70% loan to value. That's what they're comfortable with. So that means that they have this gap of $30,000. We would come in, purchase a CD for $30,000, and that CD, it isn't a loan to the borrower. It is simply security, extra security on the deal. So that CD sits in the bank for a period of time. When the risk is paid down, NMEDD recoups that money. If for any reason the borrower defaults, that CD turns back to the lending institution. And as mentioned, this is our second year in the program. We've done projects all over the state. We're not limited by industry, not limited, it isn't a standard, I would say, kind of overly bureaucratic program, because we want to be able to support projects, get more deals done, and so we're really excited. So reach out to us. Lending institutions can enroll, and then it's a really simple application process. The next program that we have is relatively new as well. This is called the Small Business Finance Finder. This program is meant to connect projects, businesses that are looking for financing, as well, on the flip, connect financiers and lending institutions with those projects. So we do that in two ways. We are conducting in-person events called finance fairs. So we're going out to communities, hosting these fairs where we invite area lenders as well as business resource technical assistance providers like your SBDCs and like we had USDA at the last one. Those folks are all in attendance. They have tables. You can see some pictures from our last event up in Taos. And then we invite the public. So we invite businesses that are looking, they have projects in mind, all different points in their project scope. So maybe it's just an idea, they're information finding, or maybe they're ready to go. They're looking for a lender. So our next one will be in Albuquerque. Tentatively, we're doing the planning right now, but scheduled for December 11th at Las Puertas. That's a location down in Albuquerque. So you'll be able to register when we send out this PowerPoint. And so obviously we're looking for businesses that are interested in attending, as well as lenders that want to have a table and present. I think in Taos, the last one that we did, we had around 160 people, all businesses attend. We had about 26 lenders, and it was a lot of fun. We got really good feedback from businesses and lenders and resource providers. So if you're interested in that, reach out to us. We also have this idea, this concept online. You can, as a business, submit an inquiry to us, which is just a basic summary of your project. Hey, I'm a hemp industry business in Raton, and I need $100,000 for a piece of equipment. And then we might follow up with you. We'll vet that, make sure it's feasible, and then we will send that inquiry out to a list of lenders that we have from all over the state. So if you are a business, check that out, as well as if you're a lender. If you want to be on that email list that you're getting projects delivered to your email, reach out to us. And we'll send you the links to that. I did want to mention our Opportunity Zone initiative. This is an interesting avenue to consider if your community has an Opportunity Zone. I forget who it was. Brad mentions that a lot of these projects have been financed with venture capital or private investors. So this might be an interesting way to further incentivize project development in Opportunity Zones. At the state level, in our department, we're managing the initiative. So we've set up a website that can help provide resources around Opportunity Zones. If you can see, this is a screenshot of the website. Businesses, communities, investors, partners, we've compiled a lot of different resources. And then there, I think on this slide, you can see you're able to search if your project falls in an Opportunity Zone. There you can see a project pipeline of projects that have been submitted to us that are current and active and looking for resources or financing. So on our website, you can submit your project. This is very similar to our Business Finance Finder in the way that if you are a lender and you're interested in getting summaries of Opportunity Zone projects, you can sign up, and vice versa, where you can if you're a business, you can submit your project if it's in an opportunity zone. And I know I'm really quickly going over that, but hopefully everybody knows opportunity zones are a way to incentivize investors to invest their capital gains into what is called underserved markets. So all of these areas are low income areas or distressed economic areas. And we have 63 tracts throughout New Mexico, and those were designated by the U.S. Treasury, nominated by the state government. But it's a way to hopefully get and incentivize folks to invest money. So there's benefits for those investors if they invest their money in projects that are in an opportunity zone. So going really quickly through that. And then here's our contact for the finance development team. I think Juan Torres, the finance team leader, is on the call if you have questions for him. And then I did want to briefly, really quickly mention that we have some surprise guests today. Sarah Gutierrez, who is the program manager of JTIP, Job Training Incentive Program, is here, as well as Patrick Gannon, and they're sitting at the table with us because their program, JTIP, obviously applies to hemp industry businesses. So if you want to say how folks can connect with you guys, maybe just really quickly a minute or so.
Sure. Thanks, Joanna. Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Gutierrez, and I manage JTIP. Our program can help companies offset the cost of training new hires and newly created positions in primarily manufacturing industry, as well as some non-retail service. So we have seen a few hemp companies come through our program. We've received many inquiries and anticipate more. So we encourage you to reach out to Patrick Gannon, who is our marketing coordinator. He'll come and meet with you, determine whether or not your company meets eligibility. JTIP isn't able to support kind of traditional agricultural activity, but anything kind of after the harvest step could possibly be eligible on the manufacturing side, from drying, extraction, and then manufacturing the actual products and shipping those out. So Patrick Gannon is your contact, and his contact information is on New Mexico Economic Development website. It's gonm.biz, and look under business development and JTIP, and you'll find him there. It's patrickgannon.com. Patrick Gannon at state.nm.us.
And we'll send you guys contact out.
Okay.
So they're always open, as we all are, to fielding any questions. No question is too wild for us to consider, and we can talk you through all the programs that the state has to help support your business. So with that, and let's see if I have one more slide. I don't, but we'll keep it on this slide, and let's open it up for questions. We've already gotten quite a bit, and it looks like, so sorry, we only have about 10 minutes, so we'll go through these like a lightning round of questions. But our first question was, where can we find guidance? The guidance that Chris Moya mentioned, is that issued on the website? So Chris, does that ring a bell with you? The guidance that's being brought up?
Is this a financial institution that's asking for this guidance?
This is actually, it doesn't look like it, but maybe that, I don't know if there's any more clarification, but.
Yeah, so I don't think we have it posted on our website, but I can get it posted on our website probably by the end of today if I get a chance to, but I can post it on the Financial Institutions Division website. Okay,
and is that, just for clarification for everybody, is that guidance for the finance institutions? Is that what that's referring to?
Yeah. It is guidance directed towards our state chartered banks and state chartered credit unions.
Okay, and if you do that, by the time we send out the presentation, we'll put that link in the email we send out to everybody too.
Okay, not a problem.
All right, and then we had a question for Brian. Well, this is TALF in Sandia area federal credit unions service area. So do you want to talk who's able? Do you have limitations on who you serve?
Well, we feel the hemp industry aligns very well with our permaculture field of membership. So, the hemp industry and the plant itself derives a number of benefits, not only on the environment, but the CBD oils that come from that plant. So, yes, if your business is in Taos and it's in the hemp industry, you would be able to join. Same thing if the business was in Las Cruces, Clovis, across the strait, really.
Okay, great. So not limited geographically. Okay. And then you have your contact on one of your slides. And then we had a question for you, Brad. What constituted I think you mentioned a crop destruction. Someone is asking, did it just not pass the initial potency test? What were other reasons? They're looking for a little bit more explanation on why crops are destroyed, looks like.
You bet. Crop destruction from our point of view is because during the testing, they did not meet the definition of hemp in the state, which is 0.3% total THC or below. And so if it was above that, then an order is issued for crop destruction.
Okay, thanks. And then I think this question is to you as well. Is there a website we can go to verify hemp licenses? If not, what is the best way to verify licenses? And that's coming from Brandy.
Great question. Right now, the best way we can address it is just to call our office at New Mexico Department of Agriculture. Give us the name or the company name and so forth, and we'll validate that they have a license.
Okay, wonderful, thanks. Let's see, NT had a question. Can JTIP fund training for management courses?
In some cases, we can through our Step Up program, which is an incumbent worker training aspect of JTIP. So it kind of depends on how long the company's been in business. But if it's been in business for at least a year and meets various eligibility requirements, it's possible. So it's worth a conversation.
Thanks. And let's see, we had a couple of questions come in about will this recording and presentation be available? So just want to reiterate that we will send out the PowerPoint presentation as well as the link to the live recording. And let's see, just reading through some of these, and feel free to, we still have some time if you have questions, type them in. And then we had another licensing question. So this is from Leah, who regulates licensing for processing extraction facilities? What are financing options for hemp ancillary businesses? So 2 questions. I don't know if you want to take that one, Brad. The first part, who regulates licensing for processing extraction facilities?
New Mexico Environment Department.
Okay. And maybe we can send out the contact to them as well when we send out this follow-up email. And then this is a more broad one. This is kind of a broad question, but what are financing options for hemp ancillary businesses? Does anyone want to take that one?
Well, I think financing options are kind of open to most businesses you find in general. Like you use the land as collateral, some real estate, maybe some personal assets. So I think there's numerous options for financing some hemp businesses.
Joanna, this is Jerry Walker. I would agree with that, with the caveat that, again, the Safe Banking Act that we're working on in the Congress, if we can get that passed and signed into law, that will negate that conflict between federal and state law and make it much clearer and much easier for banks to have a degree of certainty in terms of not being in violation of some of the federal laws. So again, we go back to this Safe Banking Act and the notion that we need to have our senators and our governor pushing the leadership in the U.S. Senate to get this done so we can try to clarify that, in fact, there is a safe harbor for banks to be lending in this arena.
Great, Jerry. Thanks for that. And I would like to add, too, on that question in terms of what are the options. Feel free to reach out to the department, NMEDD, to explore the whole toolbox of not only our programs that we have, but we have connections and connections to resources to other agencies, other entities, whether it's organizations that are involved in angel capital, venture capital, some of the more private investment opportunities. We can help kind of point you in those directions too. So the opportunities abound, and that's what we hope you take away, is that where to go, who to contact to get more information, to help with that clarity, at least where to go on opportunities. And then we did have Jay Sanders mentioned, please note New Mexico Environmental Department is taking public comment on their processing and manufacturing final rules until November 11th by email. So that's good to know. Thanks for sending that. And then let's see, we'll take one more question and then we'll close it out. This is from Stephen, and it is for Brad. What licensing requirements are for making hemp salad for retail and direct to consumer using FSMA and GAP? So it sounds kind of technical. I don't know what those acronyms are, but maybe you do, Brad?
You know, the hemp salad thing has just come up recently with us. We had a conversation with the New Mexico Environment Department because it occurs after harvest, and we're working on who will regulate that and which and how it will be regulated between the two agencies.
Okay, great. All right, well, we're at 11:30 exactly. So again, I really want to extend our gratitude for everyone's time, for those of you that are joining us remotely, and then Chris, Moya, Rebecca, Brad, Brian, Jerry, thank you guys so much for your time and your expertise. And you guys that are listening, these are the experts, so reach out to them. As well as our team, Sarah, Patrick, Juan. We are ready to go. We're ready to help. So really excited about all the potential that the hemp industry has for the economy in New Mexico. So working together, we can get there. So all right, thank you all so much, and join us on our next webinar. That'll be at the end of December, before Christmas. So all right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.